Get your thoughts first, Tyrik, on a series that we all had the Cavs winning in, not overly comfortably. I believe we had it all in 6 and 7, but
Yeah.
a series we all believed the Cavs would win, but the Knicks get the early lead in game one.
I think all of the questions I kind of had, like with the Cavs offense in late games and their defense in late games, was kind of like, valid questions, valid concerns. And I think we saw that in game one. Brunson down the stretch, does what he's been doing all year long, is like really being able to, win the next games and really control games down the stretch. Um, the one thing, and my dad actually brought this to my attention, the Cavs front line, even though they play with two bigs, it's kind of like the bigs that with Randall and Mitchell Robinson, very physical, especially Julius Randle, a very physical guy. They're gonna have their hands full, with those matchups. So I'm just interested to see, what kind of rotations they decide to run. Um, Being able to hit the 3-point shot, Okoro, we talked about him. He could be the X factor in this series for the Cavs. I seen a lot of times he wasn't confident, just sitting there knocking down the shot. Was really trying to, guys weren't really fully closing out, and he was just, still using the exit dribble trying to get to the basket. He has to be a threat from downtown because, if they can't keep up with the Knicks and their shooters, it's going to be a very tough series. Very tough series. But it's just one game. We know that these teams match up very well, and I'm expecting Cleveland to bounce back for sure. This is going to be a very long series. I think. I still stand by that. But the Knicks being able to win that game one, I didn't really expect them to go in and win game one in Cleveland. That kind of surprised me a little bit. So a very good win by the Knicks. We'll see how the Cavs respond. But I still got those questions, man, about the Cavs offense down the stretch and their defense, man, because Garland and Mitchell, I will stand on that, can continue to get headhunted down the stretch of games. That's not something that's going to go away anytime soon.
Hey, man, I want to make one main point on this game one, and that's that sometimes the smaller trades pay off in big ways because looking down every stat from this game, field goal percentage pretty close, 3-point shooting pretty close, free throw differential pretty close. That big difference is the rebound differential. And who did they bring in at the trade deadline? You got to give a huge shout out to Josh Hart here because this man came in third leading scorer on the team and put up a double-double with the rebounds. That unique skill set. The rebounds were the difference in the game. They won by 4 points, and they won the rebounding battle by, 12? I mean, that's a big deal. You got one of the best rebounders at that position. And now it's like, oh, this random guy they picked up as a role player and is coming off the bench for them. Like, he was the difference maker, and he took a game on the road. Now if they can just protect MSG, like, they have a real shot of winning this series. So it's just a reminder to see that, like, not every trade that puts a team on another level needs to be that star player trade.
Yeah, definitely. Josh Hart was great game one. Class great. Shot the ball well. Had a big pull-up three late in the fourth to push them a little bit further ahead. And this was a game where, even though the bench did play relatively well, and especially Josh Hart had a really good game, like Emmanuel quickly didn't shoot the ball well. Quentin Grimes didn't do much for them offensively. RJ Barrett had a really rough shooting night. So if you're a Knicks fan and you're worried about the fact that Cleveland didn't play that great and he barely won, you had a lot of key guys for you to not play that great offensively either. So there's still room for them to grow on that end. But like you mentioned, the rebounding battle was significant. I think as an NBA collective, me included in this, we all forget how good of a rebounder Julius Randle is. I mean, he's a big, strong physical presence, but like he's legitimately one of the best rebounders in the league. Not at his position, not power forward, just one of the best rebounders in the league. He's consistently around 10 a night, and he just dominated that matchup with Mobley. He was the better player on the defensive end when he was matched up with him. He was better on the offensive end. He was better on the glass. He was just dominant in that matchup. And he shot the ball really well early on. He was a little bit cold midway through, but finished it off well in the fourth with a couple of good buckets. And, of course, Brunson did his thing. He had a really quiet 27 until he had a few in the fourth, but he was just consistently well throughout. And as long as this Knicks bench continues to do this thing and this Knicks team continues to hit the glass, which with the personnel they have, they should, they're going to be in a good spot here. And the Cavs are still nowhere near out of it. I mean, Okoro shot 1 of 6 and Mobley shot 4 of 13. Those are the types of guys, like you mentioned, Tyrik, especially with Okoro, needs to start hitting his shots, because otherwise they're going to have to start relying a lot more on Cedi Osman. And when that's the case, as we saw in the fourth quarter, Jalen Brunson is just going to win that matchup on the offensive end. I mean, Cedi competed, but Brunson is going to beat Cedi Osman every time. Cedi is just not a good enough defender for that. Okoro is, but he needs to feel confident shooting the three, because within a couple of missed threes in the first quarter, right away, he already had lost confidence, and he was just taking everything to the hoop and just trying to dish it off. He lost confidence instantly. Karis LeVert needs to shoot the ball better. Well, that's another thing, but LeVert being streaky in the playoffs just seems to be something we need to accept at this point. That's just something we get from LeVert. It was no different last year in the play-in with the Cavs. He was someone who was going to have a big game alongside Garland, and Garland did not get that help. So Donovan Mitchell did what he could. He played great on the offensive end. And even though he didn't get picked on at times defensively, he did also force some big turnovers down the stretch, which I'll give him credit for. But Mitchell needs a little bit more help, and Okoro needs to be a part of that. Mobley needs to be a part of that. LeVert needs to be a part of that. And hopefully Garland gets a little bit more opportunities too, because he didn't play bad in game one, but I just felt like he was just kind of there for most of the game, and he just felt like he was another role player. I didn't really feel like this was another borderline all-star caliber guy on the Cavs who was going to potentially take over the game at stretches. He just very much felt like he was there, which they need a little bit more from if they're going to get past this Knicks team.
Yeah, first quarter, Garland, at least from watching, just like numbers aside, I feel like he was playing good. He looked confident, like he was, getting his own shot, playmaking really well, getting guys open shots. And then it just seemed like the rest of the game, he was, like you said, he was just kind of like there. He just kind of faded to the back a little bit. He has to kind of demand that same attention, especially if, you're not going to get great games from, Okoro shooting the ball, or if Mobley doesn't pick it up, because that's possible, because like you said, he's dealing with a bull in a china shop in Julius Randle. And that is a tough, like one thing I've seen from Evan Mobley early on in his career is guys that are just that physical can really overpower him and really wear him down. And that's probably what Julius Randle is going to do as the series goes on. So they're going to need Darius Garland to really step up and be like 1B. It can't just be Donovan Mitchell, the guy, and then everybody else. Darius Garland kind of has to be 1B to Donovan Mitchell's 1A.
Yeah, I think last week when we were on just talking about this series and some of the preview, I think Super Mario brought up that he was not too high on Darius Garland coming into this series. And some of that did come to fruition. Only one assist out of your star point guard and a tight game like that. Now, obviously, just the raw assist number is not going to show the full story. A lot of passes could have led to just missed shots. I mean, on a poor shooting night, that just happens sometimes. But still, you'd expect a little bit more than that. My last thing on this game is just I got to give a formal apology out to not only the Knicks organization, but especially Jalen Brunson, because he was really good last year in that first round series when Luka Doncic missed some games, goes to the Knicks, and I'm like, oh, like that's a good signing. He's going to make them better, but I didn't think he was going to make them this much better. So, we got to our preseason predictions, and I didn't even have this team making the play-in. And now I'm looking at myself, and I was silly. I watched this man have a 40-point playoff game and a win, and I put no stake into it. And I don't know why I didn't, but this is my formal apology. I'm sorry. I was fooled. I was not familiar with your game, Jalen. You have led this Knicks team to as close to the promised land as they've been in a long time. And Jalen Brunson versus Donovan Mitchell continues to be one of the freshest young rivalries in the NBA.
As an ambassador of the Jalen Brunson fan club, we accept your apology, man, because there's a lot worse disrespect, I think, among Jalen Brunson discourse in the offseason. And really during the season, too. This man had an all-NBA caliber year. He played great basketball, and he is a champion. He's a two-time national champion. That's why I'm not surprised that his game gets better once we get to the postseason. Like, he just continues to rise to the occasion, man. Like, dude is a winner. He is a hooper, and that's why I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks get out of this series, because they have somebody like Jalen Brunson who is a dog when it comes to these winner-go-home situations.
Definitely. He's been great with the Knicks this year, and apology is indeed accepted. The only note I will say on that is it is clear that this man did not watch one of my 3 videos on Jalen Brunson through 2021, but that's okay. He was not aware of the man who ran the NBA yet, so we can apologize the absence.
A little late to the party. That's all it was.
Just a bit.
I was a psycho for that, having 3 videos on Brunson in 1 year. But what can I say?
Hey,
We are fans of Jalen Brunson on this podcast.